Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
Kathy Brown had been happily married to Ben for 12 years. Ben was her everything. He was the solid foundation of her life. Their sex life had become very predictable and somewhat boring after Maria, their only child, had been born 3 years ago, but she loved him unconditionally. Kathy had worked for the steel company for the last 8 years. Her former female boss had recently been replaced with a handsome, dynamic young man, Roger Smith. Roger was about 7 years younger than Kathy. Kathy felt a lust building for Roger. It's not that she ever thought of him as a replacement for Ben. She did think about him as a sexual partner. She constantly eyed Roger when he was talking to others or simply walking past her. She had begun having dreams about the various things she and Roger would do to each other. She just thought of these as her naughty fantasies and never attempted to act on them. But recently, these fantasies had become completely consuming during her waking hours. She was becoming very nervous and daydreamed about Roger all of the time. Ben had commented more than once that she seemed to be a million miles away in her thoughts. It seemed that fantasized sexual exploits with Roger were all she ever thought about anymore. This did seem to stimulate her to be more aggressive with Ben and ask for him some things they had not done in many years in their lovemaking. But even when Ben was bringing her to orgasm, all she could think of was Roger doing it to her. She would have been content to just continue with her fantasy, but events overtook her and brought her fantasies to realities. Roger had asked her to stay late to work on a contract proposal for an important client. He was the perfect gentleman during their evening work. After reviewing the final draft of their proposal, Roger smiled and nodded. "Yes, this is great. Thanks so much, Kathy. Why don't I buy you dinner as a reward for a job well done?" Kathy thought about it for a second, and her lust finally overcame her better judgment. "Okay, let me call Ben and tell him so he doesn't worry." She dialed their home, and when Ben answered, said, "Ben, honey, Roger is so pleased with my work tonight, he wants to buy me dinner on the company as a thank you. Isn't that wonderful? So, I will be a little later getting home, okay?" Ben was happy for Kathy. She had expressed fears to Ben several times since Roger had become the boss that Roger didn't think much of her work since he never gave her any praise or even acknowledged the quality of her work. Ben said, "Way to go, honey. You are finally getting some well-deserved recognition. Enjoy the dinner. I have an early appointment tomorrow, so I will probably be asleep when you get home." They expressed their love for each other and each hung up. Roger drove Kathy to the most elite restaurant in the city. He was suave, funny, and attentive to Kathy before and during the lovely candlelight dinner. He told her about his life. He was a Stanford graduate, divorced a year now with one daughter he got to see weekly. He loved his daughter and showed Kathy pictures of them together. He still thought he had feelings for his ex, but hoped to eventually lose the mental anchor and get back to having a relationship with someone. Kathy told him about her family and her love for husband and her daughter. She did reach out on several occasions and touch Roger's hand, as she told him some story about a family trip or family event that she was proud of. Roger paid for dinner, and they waited at the door for the valet to bring Roger's car around. Roger put his arm around Kathy's shoulder and kissed her cheek. "I had a great time, Kathy. Thanks for being a wonderful date." Kathy, against her better judgment, put her arm around Roger's waist and kissed his lips lightly. "I really enjoyed this, Roger. Here is a kiss for being a great boss." Their heads were only inches apart. Roger looked at her with a flare in his eyes. He touched her chin with his index finger and raised her head to look into her eyes. He brought his lips to hers, and the two embraced tightly as they kissed. Roger's car arrived, and Roger moved slowly to the car with his employee clutching tightly to him. He placed her in the car, and without a word drove them to his apartment. Kathy had intermittent thoughts about what she was doing was wrong, but the lust drove rational thoughts from her mind. They immediately fell into Roger's king-size bed and explored each other's bodies for several hours. He did things to her that Ben had never done. They had sex multiple times. It was well after 1 a.m. when they laid exhausted together. Kathy looked at the clock and said, "Roger, I have to get home. I really should not have done this, but you have been a fantasy of mine ever since you became my boss." Roger nodded his head and said, "I have wanted you since the day I started. I was almost scared to talk to you because I was afraid you would see me lusting for you." "Kathy, can we do this again?" "Yes, Roger, we can do it whenever we get a chance. But understand I don't love you. I just want to have sex with you. I love my family and will do nothing to compromise that relationship. But I will do things with you that I never would imagine doing with my husband." They had sex and then stood and, moving to the shower, cleaned the evidence of sex from their bodies. Dressing quickly, Roger drove her back to her car at the office. They French kissed in the car for several minutes, and then Kathy broke away. "Enough for now. I have to get home before Ben becomes suspicious." Kathy arrived home to find Ben sound asleep. She looked at her husband lying in the bed and thought, I do love you. This is just a fling. I'm sure I will tire of Roger in a short while. You will never ever know, and we will live as husband and wife until our dying days. From that evening for the next 6 weeks, Roger and Kathy met at various motels, at Roger's apartment, in Roger's office, and even once in Kathy's living room. They were animals in heat. Roger admitted he needed sexual release after more than a year of no sex following his divorce. Kathy admitted she needed some wild and kinkier sex to spice up her life. She was even becoming more suggestive to Ben about trying some new things. Ben eyed her with some suspicion when she suggested some new positions. Where did you learn about this, honey? She suddenly felt guilty. She dropped down and turned around to Ben. Oh dear, I have been watching too many movies lately. I'm sorry if I suggested something you don't want to do. Ben shook his head. No, it is not that. I just find you so aggressive these days. And you seem to have experience already with the things you are asking me to do. You are acting like my teacher, not like my lover. Kathy almost panicked. I'm so sorry, dear. I just thought we could try some new things. I promise to stop reading the books that are giving me these ideas. Ben just smiled and hugged her. You can read what you want. Just give me time to adjust to trying this new stuff, okay? Kathy went to work the next day, walked in Roger's office and closed the door, and told Roger they would have to cool it. Cool it for a while, at least. Her husband was getting a little suspicious of her new knowledge of sexual positions and actions. She was also feeling a little guilty about becoming her husband's sex teacher. Roger was having sex with Kathy while he said, Kathy, you really should tell Ben that we are having sex. Not as lovers, but as friends with benefits, as they say today. It would certainly relieve you of the guilt you seem to feel and make our relationship open and above board. Ben would just have to understand that you are just getting an inch scratched and that it means nothing to either of us. It would also explain how you are finding out and getting experience with these new sex acts. Roger went on. Are you telling me your sex life at home is not a million times better since we started seeing each other? Kathy had to admit that her sex life with Ben was now bordering on fantastic. She leaned forward and tongued Roger with a deep kiss. God, I don't want to stop this yet. You do make me hot and horny. After this, she thought for several days about telling Ben about Roger. It was becoming more difficult to hide her liaisons with Roger. Ben would be crushed if he found out about Roger through some careless action or remark from her. Kathy discussed this with Roger twice more as they rutted with each other at Roger's apartment. I think I do need to tell Ben about us. He would be crushed if he found out about us through some stupid accidental event. I think I can make him understand that this is just a fling, and when it is over things will be just like they were, except we will have a much better sex life. Roger nodded. Yes, I think you should. I don't want to be the cause of you breaking up or anything like that. I do like Ben and I know he loves you a lot. It would hurt him if he found out about our escapades. A hurt so deep he might do something stupid. You have to tell him in a way that will lessen the pain and make him see the long-term outcome. I will do it tonight. He will understand. Kathy replied. Ben had arrived home from work before Kathy and just finished showering. He was going to take her out to dinner tonight with their daughter. He loved these family evenings together. These two women were his whole life. As he opened the shower glass door, he saw a small drop of water that seemed to be inside the glass. Apparently, the door had 2 panes of glass, and somehow the water had made its way between the panes. It was just at eye level, so it was hard to miss the little bubble of water. Ben thought to himself, well, I guess I better have that door fixed. Water should not be getting inside it. So, we can either take the door apart and rebuild it, or just junk it and get another one. Ben walked away and began dressing. He was pulling on his trousers when Kathy walked in. Hi, honey, she said. Hi yourself. You better get ready for dinner. You are running a little late. Ben replied. Ben had no way of knowing that Kathy had stopped by Roger's on the way home and did not clean up after her session with Roger. This was the first time she had actually brought signs of Roger home with her. But she had needed fortification that what she was going to tell Ben tonight was the right thing to do. Roger had screwed her, and then they had talked through what Kathy would say to Ben. Kathy turned the shower on and closed the shower door. Ben took that opportunity to tell her about the problem with the door and drop of water. He told her that the door would either have to be rebuilt or replaced. She began to slowly undress, and when she got to her panties and bra, Ben sucked in his breath. Kathy, what is that on your thigh? Is it what I think it is? Ben asked nervously. Yes, my darling. But let me explain, okay? It is not what you think. Kathy began. You see, Roger and I have. Ben cut her off. What do you mean it is not what it looks like? It's your boss's doing? You are cheating on me? Ben grabbed his head with both hands and dropped to the edge of the bed. Kathy walked over and sat on the edge with Ben. She put her arm around him. Ben, yes, I am having sex with Roger. In fact, it is great sex. But it means nothing. I only love you. Sex with Roger is just that, sex. We are just two sex buddies. It means nothing and doesn't change anything between you and me. Kathy felt good about the way she was ensuring Ben the affair meant nothing. Ben jumped up. Don't you touch me, you 304. You dare to have an affair, cheat on me, and then bring the other man into our bedroom? Get out of my sight. Just get out. No, Ben, this is my house, too. There is no need for anyone to leave anyone. As I said, this is just a fling that I am sure will end in a few months. I wanted to tell you before you found out some other way and got hurt. This way we can put it in the correct perspective, and you will know it means nothing to our relationship. Ben just stared at her. It means nothing to our relationship? What relationship? You are such a 304 that you screw another man and you see nothing wrong with that? When did you lose your morals? When did you lose your values? And when did you decide that our marriage vows meant nothing to you? Ben grabbed an overnight bag from the closet and began throwing shaving gear, underwear, and a fresh work shirt in it. Well, my dear, if you will not leave, I will. I cannot live with a stranger. And you are a stranger. You are not the woman I married. I don't know who you are. I will leave word where I will be in a day or so. But for right now, stay out of my sight. Kathy tried to stop Ben. Honey, we can work this out. Please, let's talk. Ben roughly pushed her, and she fell against the wall, hurting her shoulder. He had caused her physical pain. This was not the Ben she loved. She slapped his face with her open hand. Ben stopped and blinked at her. You slapped me. You tell me you were cheating on you, and now you slap me? Who the hell are you? Ben, it is me. I was just stunned by your reaction. You never lifted your hand against me in all of our married life. I just responded. I am sorry. It was wrong to do. Are you apologizing for slapping me or cheating on me? Ben said in a level tone. My thing with Roger is not cheating. There is no love, it is just lust. And you are benefiting from it. Hasn't our sex life been great since I started screwing Roger? Have you wanted for anything? Have I been less than the wife you married? What have you lost from my little games with Roger? What have I lost? I lost ever trusting you again. I lost my best friend and my lover. I've lost more than you can imagine. Don't you see that? No, I don't. Suddenly Kathy brightened. Look, I know how to put this. Remember that water bubble in the shower door you just told me about? Well, what I have done and will continue to do until I get it out of my system is no more than that water drop in the shower door. Kathy went one. Does it affect the usefulness or integrity of the door? No. When that water bubble evaporates, there is no indication it was even there. The glass is still pristine and the bathroom floor is still dry. That is the impact of my fling with Roger, just a water bubble in the door. When it is gone, nothing has changed and nothing is damaged. Ben thought for a moment. Kathy, I do love you and always will. But I cannot accept your fling is not damaging our relationship. For right now, I will leave. You do what you think best. Just remember, as I said about the shower door, the water bubble will result in either the door being repaired or replaced. It is the same with our marriage. So, make up your mind. With that, Ben left the house. Little did Kathy know that it would be the last time they would be in the house together. Kathy called Roger and told him what had just happened. Roger suggested she come back to his place, but Kathy begged off, saying she needed a little time on her own. Kathy still thought Ben had overreacted and would soon come to his senses. Their marriage was great and could overcome this little indiscretion on Kathy's part. Kathy fell asleep dreaming of another sex bout with Roger. Roger was very sympathetic to Kathy's home crisis, but he also wanted to continue to be with Kathy as she was now his sexual relief. She was good at what she did. Screw Ben, thought Roger. Roger now had her and could use her as he saw fit for his needs. If Ben came to his senses, fine. If not, Roger would use her until he tired of her. Roger was used to vacation cruises. He had been looking at a brochure for the Eastern Caribbean. It was a 2-week cruise hitting over a dozen ports. Since it was now winter and cold, 2 weeks in the Caribbean sounded great. Kathy still wasn't staying all night with Roger. She would come to his place for a few hours and then go home. She was hoping that Ben would either call or stop by to discuss their problems. But Ben said he would not return home as long as Kathy continued her affair with Roger. Roger had come to Kathy's house in an attempt to get to spend the night with her. Kathy had sent her daughter to stay with a girlfriend for the evening. As they had nestled into Ben's marital bed, the phone had rung. It was Ben. He was livid when he found out that Roger was there. Kathy also became hysterical when it dawned on her that she was about to have sex with Roger in what should have been Ben's sole territory. Kathy had asked Roger to leave, and she would see him the next day at the office. At work, Roger said to Kathy, "Sweetheart, I have wonderful news. I just booked us on a 2-week Caribbean cruise. We can share ourselves with each other and not worry about what Ben thinks. You come with me on the cruise, and I bet Ben will beat a path to your door to get you back when we return. He will be so jealous he will have to come to his senses." Kathy had been thinking that this whole thing with Roger was far too costly. Her lust had hurt the one man she loved above all. She thought, "I need just a little quality time with Roger, and I will be over him." Kathy readily agreed, and she left this message for Ben at his hotel. "Ben, baby? It's Kathy. Look, I am going on a 2-week cruise with Roger. I think that this will be enough quality time with him to get the lust out of my body and mind. When I get back, I am all yours forever. Have you got that?" I said forever. "Since I will be away for 2 weeks, you can stay here at the house and take care of our daughter." "Okay. Oh, by the way, that water leak is still in the shower door. It is a little bigger than before, but still no damage to speak of. You can deal with it while you are here. Remember what I said about that water bubble in the door? Well, it is still true." Kathy left with Roger on the 2-week cruise. After 10 days, Kathy had had her fill of Roger. The fantasy had turned into hard reality. Other than the sex, they had little in common. He basically treated her as a sex doll for the duration of the cruise. When they awoke in the mornings, he wanted immediate sex. She didn't want it until they had cleaned up. His mouth had a foul odor in the mornings that turned her off. She did not sleep well because Roger snored heavily. Another chink in the armor of her fantasy lover, she thought. He got drunk on the 7th night at sea, and he had smacked her face with his open hand after they had argued about Kathy ending the affair upon her return home. He later apologized, but it was far too late. After 14 days, Kathy had fallen out of lust with this fantasy. On the 14th day, they arrived in port and flew home. Kathy hugged Roger when he delivered her to her front door in the late afternoon, and Kathy said, "Roger, it is over. I got my fill of you on this trip. The fantasy is dead along with the lust. All I want now is my Ben. Thank you for the great time, but it is over." Roger looked at her and said, "It is over when I say it's over. You either will screw me tonight in your bed, or you will not have a job tomorrow." Kathy stood her ground. "I am opening this door and calling Ben. I am telling him I am sorry for the way I have been acting, and if you are still here after that, I hope he beats your butt. I know he can because he is much more man than you are. You are just a big prick with a set of balls." Roger retorted, "You are just a dumb 304 who likes to spread her legs for a bigger tool. Ben will figure out soon that you will always be a 304. When he leaves, you will come crawling back and I may let you suck me off." With that, Roger turned and started toward the car. He turned back and said, "Don't bother coming to the office tomorrow. I will have your desk contents boxed and shipped to you, along with your termination pay." Kathy unlocked the door and ran into the house. She was reaching for the phone when she saw the letter on the kitchen table. It was addressed to her and written in Ben's erratic scrawl. She slowly tore the letter from the envelope, and then she read, "Kathy, you told me to take care of the water bubble in the shower door. First, let me say that you were wrong about the bubble not causing visible damage, but you were right in drawing a correlation between the water bubble and the cheating acts you were doing with Roger. If you had been here, you would have seen that each time the water bubble occurred, it left a small residue on the glass. Over time, the residue clouded the glass. It was no longer pristine, and the clouding did not allow you to look through the glass anymore. If you had been here, you would have seen that the moisture eventually led to mold and mildew forming between the panes of glass. There is now a very large black spot in the glass. Not only is it ugly, but also it is unhealthy to be around. Such is our marriage. Your actions have clouded our marriage and introduced unhealthy conditions. As with the shower door, there are 2 choices. Choice 1, repair the door, take it apart, and rebuild it. Choice 2, replace the door. Looking at our marriage, choice 1 was a possibility until you decided to take the 2-week cruise with your lover. After that, no repair was possible in my mind. Choice 2 is my choice. I am replacing the shower door. I am replacing you. I am replacing our marriage. If you had not gone on your sex cruise, you would have found your daughter and I waiting to try to repair the marriage. But after introducing the mold and mildew caused by your continued cheating on the cruise, the only option is to replace everything. Your actions are not only unhealthy, but are actually toxic to my love for you. You have killed my feelings for you. Maria and I left on the 3rd day of your cruise. We are now living in a place that will be hard for you to find us. You will be receiving divorce papers from my attorney on the day your cruise is over. The grounds are adultery. The cabin steward on the ship has been deposed, as have the people in Roger's apartment building about your antics. Also, The desk clerks at the various hotels you used for your early liaisons have provided testimony as to your adultery. I even have an audio tape of you talking to me on the phone and your futile attempts at convincing me that your actions were just sex. I have reported Roger to his boss for using his position to have sex with you. He will be fired for cause upon his return to the office. His company is offering me a settlement to make the whole thing go away. I have no doubt that Roger will try to coerce you for continued sex. I believe he will eventually fire you if you don't give him what he wants and expects from you. If he is fired, he cannot hold any control over you at work or your private life. So hopefully you can keep your job, although the staff will probably know what is going on. I hope you are thick-skinned because your job will be your only source of income. You were right. The water bubble is an exact representation of your actions and their results. If I were you, I would look at the shower door and see if you can ever find the Kathy I married. You can have the house if you can pay for the mortgage. I have signed my part of the house over to you. Now you can bring your sex buddies into what was our home with no guilt. I took half the furniture so Maria and I can make a home for us. You can talk to Maria after we get settled, but I must insist that she never come to the house when you have men around. You are not a very good role model for her. Your soon-to-be ex-husband, Ben. Kathy dropped the letter and fell on her knees to the floor. She had let sexual lust override the sensible side of her brain. She had lost her wonderful marriage and her best friend because of her animal responses to her lust for Roger. She now had nothing but an empty house with a shower door containing a water bubble with mold and mildew. It is a big, dark black spot in the glass door that grows larger each day. She knew she would never repair the shower door because she needed it as a reminder of how wrong she had been. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.